Hi, Paul Hefty here. Going to go over our final project 6, our business plan for 492W. Again, you can see it's 120 total points. You just want to upload this to Canvas. It's due at 8 a.m. You can see it's 19% of the total grade. So the key here is you can go ahead and stack projects 3, 4, and 5 along with all your discussion CPDs and your peer reviews to be components of this final business plan. I want to start out with a cover page here where we just need your business name, the owner being you and or owners. You can have additionals, and then a specific location for your business. All right, expectations, pointers for success. As I mentioned, you're going to use projects 3, 4, and 5. The key here is to look at the feedback, review, make improvements, edits, redesign so it fits project 6 specifically. You can copy and paste, but again, the quality needs to be of high level and you need to make the corrections from the previous projects. Again, use your CPD discussion research. That's what it's for, but make sure you cite it properly, both your research and your peers. You can use the peer reviews. When using those, you want to cite the peer as a personal communication, but then you also need to cite their research source as they listed it there and then reference list it at the end. Must answer every question with TRI. Again, we have to have the format with the headers, word titles there, and subheadings with word titles for each of the numbers. You must apply content from the course lectures, from the textbook. It demonstrates you've done the work, you've been watching the lectures, and then can apply that information. Very important, any plagiarism or use of AI-generated content. We've talked about this from the beginning at the syllabus review all the way through. This will result in a 0 grade, and I will be required to report you to Academic Integrity Board at Penn State. Make sure you submit it on Canvas so that I can turn it in, check the references. Again, you need to use your own words so that it's under 25% from other sources. So if you're not doing a ton of direct quotes, that's easily done. Last, then, use your own words for the thesis and the illustrations. And then 10, use a variety of in-text citations. You can avoid that research bias. All right, part 1 is your human resources. This is basically project 4. Go through and make sure it fits. Again, look at the feedback to make improvements, because I'll simply check it against your previous project. And then again, we can make additions as we've learned through the course. You can see with each of them then, it correlates where chapter in the textbook and then the projects 3 and 4 as it sees there. And then also the CPDs for the research that's been done there. So this is the content I'm looking for you to apply. Part 2 then is recruitment, retention, and profitability. This is where you're going to start with marketing, where you're going to use the quiz essays you did in the second half of the course, applying the Made to Stick book and its principles. So again, you can see we need TRI for identifying that target market and then coming up with your strategic marketing plan. But you're going to use then the success principles as illustrations for each of the 6 principles that were made to stick. Again, must reference and the illustrations for all the 6 principles. And then last, your evaluation of marketing. As we've talked, in this day and age, you have to include digital or social media analytics. Textbooks talked about this, but also in the lecture. Next part then is customer service and retention, something we've talked throughout the whole course, almost every lecture. Then you've got your revenue and profit centers. Again, do your number 1. Describe that in detail, and then we always want to come up with additional profit centers. Again, these are points we talked about in lecture and with the textbook, chapter 11. And then last is the benchmarking that we did with project 5, demonstrating an understanding of competitive, functional, and generic. These were from CPD number 8 specifically, and then what you did for project 5. Part 3, then the last part, is into 2 halves. The first half, we start with finance management. This is chapter 12. the textbook has a specific example of an income statement. That's the type of budget we're talking about here, and we discussed in lecture. First, do T plus R there, and then secondly, then you're going to, for an illustration, actually design a income statement for your specific business. What I need here is, again, list the different revenues you talked about in part 2, and then we want to have detailed expenses so you understand that and show demonstrated understanding. And then last, looking at your state tax to your specific location, making that part of the expenses and cite that. We get into risk management then. This is where we talked about client assessment and certifications, TRI, and then your risk management plan and evaluations, TRI. Last in this first half is how you would maintain your facility, specifically a needs assessment plan, which goes then into a preventive maintenance plan and evaluations. The second half of part 3 is now we get into health law to start. We've talked about this with every CPD. I encourage you to go ahead and do research at least the first half of the course or the second half of the course. But again, you want to talk about how health law, specifically the Affordable Care Act, impacts your business, your employees, your clients. Okay. Secondly, then, we talked there the last few weeks about technology application. And again, with Project 5, look at the different technology that you would use with your business, looking futuristic if at all possible. See week lecture number 14, week number 14. Last then is the evaluation expansion we finished up the course with. Specifically use for your location analysis, you want to cite Data USA here, where we talk specifically TRI for population density with your business. This is where you need a specific location. Number 2, then travel time to your facility, how that impacts your business with the commute. Number 3, the socioeconomics of the area, the location of your business, how that impacts your business. And then last, you do need TRI. You need to cite here future plans and goals of your business. All right, mechanics then, as always, you can see it's weighted a little heavier because it's 120 total points. Again, check your previous projects for feedback to make corrections, proper citations, proper format with the headers and subheadings using word titles, and then proper list of references. And again, sources under 25%, outside sources, and consistent format. Professionalism is what we're looking for here. So again, you can see it's all wrapped up. Make those corrections. Okay to copy and paste. Must apply the content from the course. So we've got part 1, human resources. Part 2 is that recruitment, retention, profitability. 3, operations, facility management. And then 4, 12 points for mechanics for 120. Good luck.